Rameses the Great, Pharaoh and Warrior King. The hieroglyphs carved into the temple walls at Abu Simbel tell an impossible story. They speak of a single chariot charge that turned the tide of an entire war, of a pharaoh who stood alone against 2,500 enemy chariots, while his own army fled in terror. Most scholars would dismiss such claims as royal propaganda, except the enemy's own records confirm every incredible detail. This is the story of Rameses II, a man who didn't just rule Egypt for 66 years, but fundamentally changed how the world understood power itself. The making of a legend. Born around 1303 BCE, Rameses entered a world already shaped by his grandfather's ambitions. Rameses I had founded the 19th dynasty, but it was Seti I who truly set the stage for greatness. The young prince grew up watching his father wage calculated campaigns to restore Egypt's empire, learning that true pharaonic power wasn't inherited. It was seized, brick by brick, battle by battle. But Rameses possessed something his predecessors lacked, an almost supernatural understanding of spectacle. While other rulers focused on military might alone, he grasped that perception could be more powerful than reality. Even as a co-regent at age 14, he was already commissioning monuments that dwarfed his father's achievements. The message was clear. This would not be just another pharaoh. When Seti I died in 1279 BCE, Rameses didn't simply ascend to the throne, he exploded onto it. Within months, he had launched the most aggressive expansion campaign Egypt had seen in generations. His target, the Hittite Empire, the only power that dared challenge Egyptian supremacy in the Levant. The Kadesh Gamble. The Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BCE should have been Ramesses' greatest disaster. His intelligence network had catastrophically failed, leading him to believe the Hittite army was hundreds of miles away when it was actually hidden just beyond the hills surrounding the fortress city. As his divided army approached Kadesh in separate columns, they walked directly into the most sophisticated ambush of the Bronze Age. What happened next defied every rule of ancient warfare. As Hittite chariots smashed into his camp, scattering two entire Egyptian divisions, Rameses found himself virtually alone, abandoned by his bodyguard, surrounded by enemy forces that outnumbered him by more than 100 to 1. Any rational commander would have fled. Any sensible pharaoh would have negotiated surrender. Instead, Rameses charged. The Egyptian accounts describe what followed in language usually reserved for divine intervention. The pharaoh's chariot, pulled by his legendary horses, much satisfied and victory in Thebes, carved through Hittite lines like a bronze blade through papyrus. Enemy chariots overturned, their crews fleeing in panic as this single Egyptian warrior seemed to multiply before their eyes. The Hittite prince Zananza, watching from the rear, reportedly declared that he faced not a man, but a god in mortal form. Modern historians initially dismissed these accounts as typical royal exaggeration, until archaeologists discovered Hittite records describing the exact same events. The enemy's version differed only in perspective. Where Egyptian texts saw divine intervention, Hittite scribes recorded tactical genius. Rameses had recognized that his only chance lay in psychological warfare. By creating chaos in the enemy's front ranks, he bought time for his scattered divisions to regroup. The battle ended in tactical stalemate, but strategic victory for Egypt. The Hittites, having failed to destroy the pharaoh when they held every advantage, would never again possess such an opportunity. The art of eternal rule. But here's where Rameses truly proved his genius. He understood that winning battles meant nothing if you lost the story. While other pharaohs built monuments to commemorate victories, Rameses built monuments to commemorate his very existence. Abu Simbel, carved directly into a Nubian cliff face, featured 4 colossal statues of the pharaoh, each 65 feet tall. The message to Egypt's southern neighbors was unmistakable. Even in stone, Rameses dwarfed ordinary mortals. The statistics of his building program remain staggering. Rameses erected more monuments than any other pharaoh, completed more temples, carved more statues, and inscribed more hieroglyphs than the next 5 rulers combined. But this wasn't vanity, it was strategic immortality. Every stone proclaimed that Egypt possessed a pharaoh unlike any other, a ruler whose very presence guaranteed the kingdom's eternal prosperity. His diplomatic achievements matched his architectural ones. The peace treaty signed with the Hittites in 1259 BCE wasn't merely the end of a conflict. It was the world's first recorded international peace agreement, complete with mutual defense clauses and extradition treaties. Copies were inscribed on silver tablets and exchanged between capitals, establishing protocols that modern diplomats still recognize. The marriage alliances that followed created something unprecedented, a Bronze Age détente that lasted for generations. When Rameses married the Hittite emperor's daughter in his 34th regnal year, the ceremony wasn't just a wedding, it was a geopolitical revolution, proving that former enemies could become family. The mortal behind the myth. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Rameses' story lies not in his public achievements, but in the human details that survived 3 millennia. His mummy, discovered in 1881, revealed a man who stood over 6 feet tall, a giant by ancient standards. X-ray analysis showed evidence of numerous battle wounds, including a broken nose that had healed poorly and scars consistent with arrow strikes. This was no ceremonial ruler who commanded from the rear. This was a pharaoh who led charges and paid the physical price. His family life, too, defied royal conventions. Rameses fathered over 100 children with multiple wives and concubines, but his great love was clearly Nefertari, his first and most powerful queen. The tomb he built for her in the Valley of the Queens remains one of ancient Egypt's most stunning artistic achievements, its walls covered with paintings depicting their eternal union in the afterlife. When Nefertari died around his 25th regnal year, Rameses' monuments subtly changed tone. The bombastic proclamations of divine power gave way to more philosophical reflections on legacy and immortality. It was as if the man behind the pharaoh had finally emerged, contemplating what it meant to outlive those you love while still possessing the power of gods. The final victory, Rameses II died in 1213 BCE at approximately 90 years old, having ruled for 66 years and outlived most of his children and grandchildren. But his greatest triumph wasn't measured in years lived or battles won. It was measured in the fact that, even today, his name remains synonymous with pharaonic power. Modern DNA analysis has revealed something the ancient world could never have imagined. Rameses' red hair, preserved by mummification, proves he possessed genetic markers common among ancient Near Eastern peoples. This pharaoh who embodied Egyptian supremacy was himself a product of the cosmopolitan Bronze Age world he helped create. His mummy now rests in Cairo's National Museum, still imposing even in death. Visitors often report feeling unsettled by the preserved features, the aquiline nose, the strong jaw, the sense that this ancient king is merely sleeping, waiting for the right moment to reclaim his throne. In the end, Rameses achieved something no other pharaoh managed. He transcended history to become myth. 3,000 years after his death, his name still evokes images of absolute power and unlimited ambition. He didn't just rule Egypt, he became Egypt, the eternal pharaoh whose shadow falls across every pyramid, whose voice echoes in every hieroglyph, whose legacy proves that some rulers don't merely make history, they become it. The boy who charged alone against impossible odds had won his final, most important battle, the war against time itself.